Chapter 45. Knock held tight to her staff with sweaty palms. What should she do? Leave? Join her father on the other side of the bridge? This felt like a test she hadn't prepared for. The line of police parted, and the governor stepped out in front of them, flanked by the armed guards of his estate. Like the police, they carried long wooden staffs at their sides. Daggers swung from their hip belts. The people fell silent as the governor walked forward. He wore a pristine white robe that pooled in silky puddles at his feet. If he was shocked to see so many gold orbs in the crowd, he didn't show it. The look on his face was calm, in control. He scanned the marchers coolly for a long moment. Knock didn't think anyone around her was even breathing. When the governor finally spoke, his voice reverberated across the silence. "Citizens, I don't know who has persuaded you to gather here in defiance of the law, but it is time to end this foolish escapade." A short man wearing glasses and a waiter's apron stepped forward from the crowd of marchers. Knock caught sight of Somkit standing just behind him. "Your Grace," said the man with the glasses, "we are marching within our rights. We have come bearing a message." He nodded to the crowd. "The people are suffering. For years we have lived in shadow, growing poorer and bearing impossible burdens put on us by your laws. We have come here to ask, to demand, that we have a say in the laws that rule over our lives. It's time for things to change." The little man wasn't a confident speaker, though Knock could tell that he was trying. His shaky voice seemed to give the governor strength. "If you are so concerned about the law," said the governor, "then you should know that you are breaking it as we speak." He gestured to the guard on his right, who pulled out a sheaf of papers and held it high. The governor pointed to the document. "I have decreed that any demonstration against me is a threat to our city," he called out, "and those who participate will be punished with the harshest sentence." Worried murmurs rippled through the crowd. "The harshest sentence?" people asked each other. "What does that mean? Jail?" The marchers rocked on their feet, but no one moved from their position. The governor stepped closer to the crowd, eyeing them with frustration, as if they were disobedient pets. "Think about what you are asking for," he said to the crowd. "Do you really want to go back to the days before I came here, before we had order and light? Surely now you remember the dangers of fire. Or have you forgotten what it was like when the people of this city wallowed in ash and died in the mud?" The governor continued, recounting the horrors of the Great Fire. His deep voice rumbled. His cold eyes moved across the crowd, settling for a few seconds on one face after another. The people couldn't help but listen, mesmerized by his terrifying descriptions of those dark days. Knock was just as entranced as anyone else, but then he said something that broke her concentration. "The law is the light, and the light shines on the worthy." Those words again. She had always found comfort in them, but tonight it was as though she were hearing them for the first time, and they didn't sound right at all. Knock had been grasping for that light her whole life. She thought that if she were perfect in every way, if she were the best spire fighter, best student, perfect daughter, perfect everything, she'd be worthy enough for the light. But she'd gotten it all backward. So had the governor. Knock turned and looked at the people standing all around her. The orbs they carried shone softly on their faces, making it look as though the people themselves were glowing. It reminded her of what she had read in that book about the history of spire fighting. Everyone has an ember burning inside them. Knock unbuttoned the cuffs of her uniform and rolled her sleeves up to her elbows. Her scarred forearm, hidden from the sun for years, looked pale in the gold glow of the orbs. "Whoever stands against the rule of law," the governor said sternly, "stands with the darkness. Citizens, I ask you to look at your own ranks. Criminals, beggars." He sneered at the short man with the glasses. "Those who plot against me, just look," he cried, pointing to the shuttered western shore. "The law-abiding citizens of the west side have shut their windows against you. If your cause has any merit, why do no people of worth stand with you?" "They do!" Everyone gasped and turned. They do, Knock cried out again as she ducked through the front line of the crowd. She strode to the midpoint of the bridge into the empty space between the governor and the throng of people. Thousands of eyes stared at her. Knock! Cried a voice from behind the line of police. Knock's father rushed forward but was stopped short by the governor's guards. Let me go, he shouted, fighting to free himself. That's my daughter! Knock! Behind her, Knock heard the crowd whispering. That's the law commissioner's daughter. Commissioner Sivapan? Yes, that's her. The governor stood very still. Only his eyes moved, watching her like a cat. Knock planted her feet. She swept her bamboo staff out in front of her slowly, making the motions that signaled the start of a spire fighting match. A collective gasp went up from the crowd behind her. The governor's guards held their own staffs ready. Everyone knew what a skilled spire fighter was capable of, and the ones who had heard of Knock Sivapan knew just how skilled she was. Knock looked into the governor's cold eyes. Everyone on this bridge is worthy, she said, and we've found our own light. Without breaking her gaze with him, Knock bent down and set her staff on the stone at her feet. Slowly, she backed away until she joined the front line of marchers who were all watching her in shocked silence. Hey, Knock, whispered a voice beside her. She turned her head to see Somkit. He smiled at her and held out a gold orb dangling from a string. Knock took it from him and held it up. Everyone in the crowd with orbs lifted them high. The police exchanged confused glances and looked to the governor for guidance. He was seething. He raised his hands, and the tension on the bridge ratcheted even higher. You think you don't need me? He said calmly to the crowd. The icy confidence in his voice made Knock tremble. So you want to return to the way things were before? So be it. He swept one arm out to the east over the rainbow lights of the city. His fingers spread wide. His arm shook. The air thinned and the temperature dropped. The governor curled his fingers tight into his fist. In that instant, every orb on the east side of the river went dark.